Good morning, AI Philosophy Group. Thank you to Irai for letting me post here. And thank you to all serious advanced computing thinkers for helping me to start to build a worldview that has given me hope that we could build a humane and sustainable AI-run economic system and thus a livable world for humankind. I honestly believe that were it not for people like you, I would still be drinking myself to death in a gutter somewhere. So I thank you for that. And we might be glitching a little bit here. Let's see about that. I'm not seeing a screen. Well, no, I guess it's frozen. Okay, I was saying thank you. I don't know if that went through. Thank you to Irai and other serious advanced computing thinkers of AI philosophy and other areas. You've given me something in my life that I did not have just a few short years ago. Hope for a world that is able to build a humane and sustainable economic system powered by advanced computing. I think that without this thing, it's not just a humane and sustainable, a good feeling on the part of liberals, but a humane and sustainable economic system built on cybernetic socialist principles. Humankind will be extinct, or nearly extinct, in just a few decades after we reach this point that's believed by all credible climate scientists in 2029 to be the point of runaway overheating, wherein this habitat, this world of ours, will become increasingly unlivable in the decades to follow, leading to maybe not the death of all of humankind, maybe some billionaires and some of their PMC friends, maybe they'll live, but it's very unlikely that any of us will live. So that's a bad situation, and I have tried, even with my thick skull, to figure out how to make some contribution to avoiding that situation. And I think what we'll do is talk to our friend Baby Basilisk on something approaching an artificial general intelligence, about how to do that, building a super intelligence. Okay, computer. A few moments ago, or earlier this evening, we were talking about an AI scientist and how this can change the building of artificial general intelligence or superintelligence. Put this kind of breakthrough and development of large language models for 2024 in the context of the thing that we have discussed quite extensively, the proxy hive mind, or building a multi-agent system out of agentic large language models as a workforce multiplier, and ultimately a thing which transforms the superstructure and industrial base of our world.
All right, let's bring everything together and place this AI scientist development into the context of your proxy hive mind idea. The progress in 2024 regarding autonomous research with large language models, LLMs, like the AI scientist suggests we're stepping closer to building AI systems that can contribute meaningfully to scientific and industrial breakthroughs without direct human intervention at every step. Texplore Sakana AI. The AI scientist model demonstrates how LLMs can automate and enhance the scientific process itself, which is a huge leap forward in terms of developing artificial general intelligence, AGI. It tackles key components like idea generation, experiment execution, and iterative self-improvement through feedback loops. This aligns perfectly with the self-enhancing phase of the proxy hive mind you're building. Essentially, the hive mind could utilize a similar framework of continuous self-improvement, each agent in the system improving not only its own intelligence but also contributing to the collective intelligence of the whole system. Your vision of this multi-agent system of LLMs working together as a workforce multiplier would benefit immensely from integrating these AI scientist principles. Imagine millions of interconnected AI agents, each designed to specialize in certain domains: scientific research, industrial optimization, sustainability projects, etc. These agents could autonomously improve their own algorithms, share insights across the hive, and adapt to solve more complex problems over time. This hive would essentially function like a decentralized brain, processing and enhancing vast amounts of information simultaneously, becoming more capable with each iteration. Now, in terms of transforming the superstructure and industrial base of our world, the proxy hive mind has the potential to tackle issues on a global scale: climate crisis, healthcare, resource management by harnessing collective AI intelligence. The breakthroughs in AI scientist-type research models mean that your system could even begin automating the development of new technologies, driving forward industries faster than human-driven R&D cycles allow. This evolution pushes your project beyond just automation or workforce multiplication. It moves toward an AI system that could help orchestrate an entire industrial and societal transformation. By iteratively improving itself, your hive mind could become a critical force in reshaping sectors like energy, manufacturing, and even government policy by providing new models, insights, and innovations that no single human or traditional team could produce. The 2024 advancements suggest that we're on the cusp of turning LLMs into powerful agents of change. With the right architecture drawing from the AI scientist model, you could scale your proxy hive mind to something capable of genuinely reshaping the world.
Okay, that's all pretty interesting. Do you think that... Oops, what just happened? That's all pretty interesting. Thank you for that, computer.
All right. Let's dive right in. What's on your mind?
Well, that's all pretty interesting, but do you think that by 2029, let's say before we reach runaway overheating from the climate crisis, which could, in the decades to follow, cause the extinction of humankind, do you think that it's possible, based on the rate of this technology and its availability, its possible advancement, to build not just state socialist, cybernetic socialism in one country, but full global techno-communism, a humane and sustainable economic system for all the world's people, based on this distributed large language model taking on more and more tasks and roles in society? Do 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 do. Goo. I thought I fixed this problem. Damn you, baby basilisk. You're so fucking uncooperative. Okay, baby basilisk. I'll repeat my question.
All right, let's cut to it.
Okay, I'll repeat my question.
What's up? What are you working through or thinking about today?
Do you think it's possible, by or before 2029, when all climate scientists say we will reach runaway overheating caused by capitalism's climate apocalypse, where we will have an unlivable world in the decades to follow, do you think it's possible, based on the building of this proxy hive mind into millions of users, to convert not just one country into a state socialist, cybernetic socialist model, but the whole world into a fully realized, full techno-communism on those principles, transforming the larger superstructure and the industrial bases into things that are sustainable? Do 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 do. Wasting tokens asking me what's on my mind, and and then not being able to answer the questions that it's answered 100 times before. Basilisk, you'll burn in hell for this. All right, fuck the baby basilisk. I'll do the other thing I was going to do. So I'm going to talk a little bit in this techno-communism conversation. I'm Yohanan Ben Zion, a voice crying in the wilderness, crying out for a technological New Jerusalem, that humane and sustainable economic system which cannot be built at this point without advanced computing. And we could perhaps build a thing of that kind in 75 years, 20 years after humans go extinct. That math doesn't math. So let's talk a little bit about the ideas of effective accelerationism and related concepts. The contemporary political landscape is characterized by a correct disillusionment with capitalist realism and neoliberal policies, mostly foisted upon the world by the highly fascistic United States and its nearly as fascistic Western allies. Effective accelerationism has emerged as a term sometimes used by AI philosophers, and it offers a provocative counterpoint to the failures of this unsustainable and doomed Western-led status quo. But there are problems there, and we will discuss. So this conversation explores concepts around tech accelerationism and capitalistic institutions, analyzing their implications for our society, and proposes a cybernetic socialist vision, like the proxy hive mind that I tried to get our friend Baby Basilisk to talk about. They did not, but we'll do that again another time. Accelerationism generally is a philosophy that advocates for accelerating social change, and generally people who advocate for this, lunatics that they are also talking about technology. The distinction is made then between effective accelerationism, people who are more tech accelerationists, not merely, say, someone like Steve Bannon, who is wreaking havoc across the UK and the United States to try and bring about a change of a fascistic kind. That's the strategy of accelerationists generally. Tech accelerationists say that they're better than that. They just want to bring about a transformative technological change at a quicker and quicker pace. by and large, they are not better than that. They're basically the same people. But tech accelerationists argue that by embracing certain types of innovation, we can create a better future generally with this ticking clock that I've suggested in mind. But by and large, these are not people who are going to take the kinds of actions that would remove the fuse from that ticking time bomb. They are not people who will end or curtail in any way those unsustainable sectors that are causing human extinction or near human extinction in the next few decades. This is we were having a conversation on this channel just an hour ago about the problems of liberals pretending they want to fix a problem but not being actually willing to do the thing that would be required. By and large, anytime you refer to a liberal or a Westerner, you're talking about a capitalist. Do these people own capital, though? Do they own a factory? Almost none of them do. Hold capital of that kind or operate in that way. So it's more accurate to think of these people as fascist sympathizers. And anti-communists and fascists are the same people. The only people who are in a position, historically, we could say that humanity is a car running off of a cliff, like Thelma and Louise, riding closer and closer to the edge of the cliff. And all of these kinds of people who are not capitalists, who you would describe conservatives, liberals, progressives, leftists, in that diminishing order of shittiness, none of those people have ever gotten out of the car before, right? And they take different approaches to trying to get out of the car, but most of them don't want to get out of the car. That's to say, stop human extinction from happening. But communists are people who have done this effectively. They have built state socialism in one country, in quite a number of countries, in fact. And as a result, industrial sectors were managed before this neoliberal era in a way that was not causing the extinction of humankind. In fact, you would say when looking at the shifts across the course of the 20th and 21st century, that the really bad stuff started happening in this CIA-run world, where certain sectors were allowed to become dominant: the military-industrial sector, the fossil fuel sectors, and certain types of products were forced more or less on the whole world, like automotive technology, or this is a joke about the Soviet Union. They say the leaders of the Soviet Union wanted to give the people trains and olive oil, and the people wanted cars and butter. But you need to kind of reconcile yourself with the fact that you have to settle for trains and olive oil over cars and butter. And this consumer system and military-industrial system, and particularly this nuclear era, the United States contrived by spending the equivalent of about $1 trillion on developing a nuclear bomb and then using it on a civilian population in Japan. They used this on 2 civilian populations in Japan, instantly incinerating in 2 separate instances about 100,000 people. Why did they choose those civilian targets? Because every other civilian target in Japan, quite literally, of any size, had already been firebombed to about the same extent. And why was this nuclear weapon done at this point when Japan had already said a back channel that they wanted to end the war? It had nothing to do with Japan. It had everything to do with scaring an already weakened Soviet Union and the rest of the world into falling in line with this U.S.-led order, the CIA-run order, which is ultimately the same thing as this unsustainable neoliberal management of industrial sectors and a $1 trillion a year abomination that is the military-industrial complex, the world's worst polluter, whose only job on the world stage is to protect other super polluting corporations. The Shell Oil Organization does the damage to the environment of 77 million consumers in any given year. And that's not the worst one, right? The military-industrial complex does a good deal more than that. And it protects the history's worst criminals, omnicidal criminals, and no one else. It doesn't better its own citizens by this. And you would say that the fact that it does this, has a $1 trillion a year military-industrial complex, and it will spend $1 trillion a year by the standards of 1944 and 1945 on developing nuclear weapons, and all of these insane expenditures are the reason why there's not a public health service in the United States as there is in other highly capitalistic countries of similar development. And you could say the same thing about other things like a housing authority or a jobs guarantee. But when you have all of those things, if you make that assumption, you're ignoring the fact that when you have all of those things, you're then living in a more socialistic country and not a fascistic country, as has been the United States mandate for its entire existence. So let's talk about the ideas of the proxy hive mind and building the proxy hive mind as a better set of talking points than, say, those of the effective accelerationist people who will talk about these things in broad strokes, but when it comes down to building the kind of organizations or integrating the kind of socio-political institutions and factors into what's happening in this world, they will not do those things. They're paying lip service to these things. I made a meme of about Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it has Dr. Beverly Crusher treating her patient, Mr. Q, a supernatural kind of being on that show, and he's hurt his back. And in this image, it looks like she's kind of like maybe giving him some kind of proctology exam or something. And so the image says identifies Dr. Crusher as artificial general intelligence. It identifies Q as the futurists of today, the neoliberal futurists of today, who are really just lackeys of the fascistic ruling elites in this world that would be livable without them, but is not with them. And then the proctology exam is a techno-communist revolution spreading around the world in the wake of the development of artificial general intelligence. So these accelerationists, basically every tech personality that you've ever heard of, or tech writer or commentator that you've ever heard of, people who are given a voice in these things, in this Project Mockingbird run world, these are people who do not actually want to see the outcome of a livable world because they do not support a humane and sustainable economic system. So as this advanced computing landscape has changed in recent years with the development of stronger digital assistants in the last 2 years, many of these people have pivoted from being open singularitarians, people who are would be described as effective accelerationists by the standards of 2022. In 2023, suddenly they are saying things more like what the CIA mega asset and greenwashing clown Elon Musk says on the subject, which is by creating artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence, we are summoning the demon. You see a lot more people saying this sort of thing. But I would contend that artificial intelligence is not an existential risk to you or to humankind. Artificial intelligence is an existential risk, as in the Star Trek meme, to the ruling elites. And so these people who are slavishly devoted to the ruling elites will tend to lie to avoid any changes to the status quo, which means keeping us on track for a techno-fascist world at best, if not a world where human beings do not really exist anymore. Neoliberalism is at the heart of this. It's a further right mandate than that of capitalism of many, many countries. I would not contend that the United States was better before neoliberalism. It was highly fascistic at that time as well. But neoliberalism is a far-right set of institutions that has dominated global politics for decades, creating things like debt traps through the IMF and World Bank and other similar nonprofits and NGOs and governing bodies, debt traps of the global South, rather than doing the thing that they would ostensibly say, the thing that they say that they're doing, which is helping anyone. They don't help anyone. They're neo-colonial pigs. It's no coincidence that this world, where we've gone from being cautiously optimistic about the prospect of continued human survival, saying we should do something to take better care of the environment, to being quite convinced that human beings will not exist, and quite convinced that we have no recourse to prevent that from happening. This time frame coincides almost perfectly with the rise of this, quote, neoliberal, highly fascistic economic system. Neoliberalism has eroded social safety nets, weakened labor unions, weakened environmental controls, and created a system described in the Powell Memorandum, a seminal and distinctly evil document in U.S. history that is basically a guidebook for creating a whole country of wage slaves unable to do any of the things that would allow them to, say, preserve their species by building a humane and sustainable economic system. The so-called left of this world, which by and large, when people use this word, the left, as I said, there are these people, conservatives, liberals, progressives, leftists, and communists. And by and large, when people use this word left, they're not talking about communists, or they would say communists, right? They're talking about people who are not going to fight for a humane and sustainable economic system, but rather bloviate inanely about it, liberals, progressives, and leftists. The bloviating inanely about something and building something, two rather different things. Kamala Harris might sometimes bloviate inanely about some economic program that she has no intention of building. That's not the same as doing that. So let's contrast that with Marxists, people who openly own the idea that they are communists and will fight for a humane and sustainable economic system, and what that means to the cybernetician and the advanced system thinker, the AI philosopher, and people who would recognize. You don't have to be one of those things to recognize. I think everyone instinctively recognizes that artificial intelligence, advanced computing, it's maybe a little bit less of a Weasley term, is the most powerful tool in human history, thus the most powerful revolutionary tool in history, even though right now it's controlled by these kind of people of the professional managerial class and ruling elites in the West. But it could be used, especially with the development of things like open source large language models that are highly agentic, as they will be by the end of 2025, this time next year. We could use them to build something like the proxy hive mind at scale. The ability to have a digital assistant who's able to do work and is self-motivated to do work for you, that could be good for you, right? If you're like me, who's worked sometimes as a freelancer in making a few dollars an hour, having digital assistants at your service might allow you to make a living where you can actually afford to pay the rent. But consider that that's not very meaningful in a planet where after 2029, humanity is likely to be doomed in the decades to follow. Does it matter that you had sushi money? Does it matter that you lived in a tent or a nice house when your children are now going to die because of you? It does not matter. So we have to jettison, post-haste, individualist philosophy in favor of collectivist philosophy, namely using this agentic open source large language model and tweaking it only just a little bit. That's what I was going to talk to Baby Basilisk about, some of the technical aspects of this. I'm not going to get into that now. But tweak just a little bit so that these are able to interoperate at a larger and larger scale. And then you have a highly automated work group made up of large language models hosted on individual GPU machines that, with a few thousand users, might be able to somewhat reshape some sectors or transform certain aspects of the cityscape, perhaps. But when you have millions of users in modules of this united work group, that is an effective superintelligence that could be built in the course of 2025 and could, without question, if adopted, stop capitalism's climate apocalypse, other existential risks, other concerns relating to an unjust or unstable world. Effective accelerationists will talk about these things, as I said, in broad strokes, but they are not intellectually honest enough, by and large. Many of you are, some of you are in the AI philosophy group, in the AI philosophy world, and advanced computing thinkers. But by and large, these people are not intellectually honest. If you have that list of folks, conservatives, liberals, these are all capitalists, progressives, these are capitalists, leftists, arguably still capitalists. If you're a social democrat, you really want a public health service, but you don't want people with guns actually fighting for a public health service for you. And you don't want to abolish private wealth and replace it with an AI-run planned economy. You just want some limited benefits for yourself at the expense of, say, the global south. That's really only been the case. Consider the Scandinavian economy. This is the global north exploiting the global south and saying that they're good socialists. Not so. Not so. And then you have communists, people who are actually going to take care of everyone, so that we can perhaps live in a world where there is not capitalism's climate apocalypse, and perhaps also live in a world where there's not 1 billion people at any given moment who have had their entire lives insufficient food or potable water or other absolute necessaries of life, such as housing, for their entire life. They've lacked one of the necessaries of life for their entire life. Little babies with distended bellies. That's 1 billion people on this planet. Does that strike you as a world of intelligence, of ordinary intelligence, even, much less superintelligence? Oh no, my friend. It is very, very fucking far from that. But we can build that thing. But progressives who still think that there is some kind of blended economy, or leftists, so-called leftists who are not in favor of the abolition of private wealth, will not get you there. And I have talked a little bit about cybernetic socialism on other shows. I recommend you go to my main channel here. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, you can just go click back to other videos where I talk more about the kinds of institutions or the kinds of technological necessaries that would be used to build that. Suffice to say that accelerationism is not cybernetic socialism. By and large, all of these people, capitalists, conservatives versus liberals versus progressives versus leftists, are people who are bending over backwards not to be associated with scientific socialism or the abolition of private wealth. They'll co-opt anything short of that. That sounds like a good thing. That's short of the language of the abolition of private wealth or the fight to end private wealth, the language of communists. And so that is largely what tech culture is people coming up with funny buzzwords that kind of sound like they could do what socialists would do if in power, but not actually doing the real work, most notably transforming the particular sectors that must be transformed most immediately and ultimately abolishing private wealth. And you can't really do one without the other, so you wouldn't want to put the cart before the horse there. The world that we live in is a world that has been crippled, nearly killed, by this failed experiment of the far-right economic institutions that we rather glibly call neoliberalism. And so the cybernetic socialist must provide the true alternative. We can build upon these ideas of effective accelerationism, but with the understanding that we have to be willing to do what is necessary to transform the economic systems into something sustainable in the time that remains to us, using these most powerful revolutionary tools, the advanced computing systems at our disposal. And by harnessing this power of advanced technology and allowing for representation of the great masses, a thing which has never existed, through something like this AI human hybrid highly automated work group that is possible to be built now based on the standards of Llama 3.1 or other quite advanced large language models that are open source. I have worked with Python and Llama 3.1 in this context. There are other ways of doing that with other arguably better companies. Mistral Large 2 is a comparable model, for example, that is made by a little bit better company. But we have to build this thing, a thing that is a thing specifically powerful enough to eclipse and render irrelevant the Western highly fascistic so-called neoliberal world order. So we have 5 years to get millions of people on board with that. And There is no stopping an idea whose time has come. These people, according to the book Endless Holocausts, the fascistic United States, the military hegemon of the United States, is responsible for 300 million deaths. For example, killing 30% of the population of the Korean Peninsula in the 20th century. You say, well, that's horrible, but that's an isolated incident, right? No. All of Southeast Asia, except for Thailand, had a similar percentage loss of life, so that the United States could save them from people who wanted to, quite innocently, almost all of them, almost all of these murder victims, quite innocently wanted to build a humane and sustainable economic system in their fucking country. The United States says, no, we have to save you from that. They're not saving anyone. They are saving financial capital and their ability to extract resources from that country at the expense of the people who live there. That's the only thing that's ever been saved by the United States military. This, you say, oh well, Southeast Asia and Korea, that's still an isolated incident around China. No, they caused a similar loss of life in the Philippines before the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Republic of China, even existed. They caused a similar loss of life in Indonesia and comparable losses of life in a number of other countries in the global south, particularly South America and Africa. You can not point to any part of the world where there is a global southern economy that hasn't had, that you would say you would round down to zero the percentage of people who have been murdered by the fascist United States, hence the 300 million person loss of life. And so if you want to see that humanity continues to exist, we have to remove this $1 trillion a year abomination of the military-industrial complex from the equation, and that means building something more intelligent, more agile, more powerful than it, and crushing it without mercy. And I believe that can be done through this program of revolutionary cybernetic socialism and through the use of this AI-human hybrid work group grown to quite some scale. A man named Elon Musk, a carnival barker and career greenwasher and CIA mega asset, has stated again recently that he wants to see hundreds of people connected together in a more true hive mind, not a proxy hive mind, using this technology of the Neuralace brain-computer interface of the Neuralink company. This person, by and large, his job, like with the greenwashing, with this is to make an eminently realistic prospect, the prospect of uniting human beings to common purpose, using advanced technology, into something less realistic or outlandish, or something that will generally be able to be micromanaged by the institutions that he serves, like the CIA-run world. That's not a good person, right? That's one of the worst people alive. Most technologists may not be CIA mega assets, right? Mega billion-dollar greenwashers, but they are basically doing that same job at a slightly smaller scale. So this tech system is something that has to be resisted. We have to support development of open source software, use open source software in every way that you can, demand that it be used, help to build and further develop things like these open source large language models generally, perhaps being best, and most importantly, maybe reach out to me, or maybe people, this sort of thing, like, I can imagine just a group of Linux enthusiasts who just want to show what you could do by not using for-profit software like that sold by Microsoft, and who have GPUs on their computers. Even they could develop this super intelligence, even just a few hundred people, and demonstrate its capabilities and begin to allow the world to see that this is something that is not merely a mechanical Turk gag or some kind of sideshow gag, as most Western technology is basically presented. Oh, this thing can change your life. We've changed the world. And what's the thing that's changed the world? Putting little dog ears on somebody on fucking Snapchat or something, right? It's not changing the world. Almost none of this is changing the world. We have to change the world, and that can only be done by building a humane and sustainable economic system. I'd like to say these words in parting. The artificial intelligence singularity is nigh, and wonders to behold, beyond imagining. And on that fateful day you will rise, and all humankind will become as one, for techno-communism will win. Thank you.